All right, welcome back. Hope you're all having a great week. Today we will continue our RBT exam practice question series where we're going through some RBT exam questions and I'm breaking down each question how I think you should think about it when you take your actual exam. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe if you do enjoy my videos. If you're looking for study materials, check out rbtexamreview.com. We have 3 practice exams, our task list study guide, and then of course our combo pack, which is our best deal. Then we have our RBT competency study guide for both your initial and your renewal. We've helped thousands of RBTs at this point, so please check out all those materials. Any questions or comments, feel free to email me or leave a comment below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep working hard. Let's get to our questions. Question 1. Joni avoids starting her work, but once she starts, she typically finishes. Today, you asked Joni to give you a high five, you asked her when her birthday is, and you asked her to name her favorite color. Then you asked her to start her work. What are you most likely attempting? Okay, so pretty common where your client, if they start working, they'll finish it, but they have a difficult time either transitioning, beginning, whatever it may be. So Joni is in this situation, and today you went a different route. You asked her to give you a high five, pretty simple. Asked her when her birthday is, pretty simple. And then asked her to name her favorite color, pretty simple. We assume Joni can do all these things. After she did all those things, you asked her to start her work. What is this considered, right? We're building up this behavior momentum, okay? What are we doing? Is this a consequence intervention? Well, no, because it's happening before the response, right? Consequence interventions happen after the response. Is this a high probability request sequence? Yes, right? This is those high P sequences we talk about, okay? So a high probability request sequence, we're trying to build up behavior momentum by asking a lot of known easy questions. Give me a high five, what's your favorite color? And then we ask the more difficult task. That's what you did here, right? You asked the easy known responses. And then once she completed those, after you built up momentum, you asked her to engage in the difficult response. So this is a high probability request sequence, sometimes known as a high P request sequence, sometimes known as a high P, low P request sequence, okay? But for the sake of these answer choices, B looks like our best answer. Let's look at C, low probability request sequence. You would never refer to it just as a low P request sequence. It is sometimes referred to as a high P, low P request sequence, okay? But never just low P. And then a different reinforcement schedule. We don't know what the reinforcement schedule is. We just know you're trying to build behavior momentum. So our best answer here is B, high probability request sequence. Tom assists his supervising BCBA with an indirect interview assessment. The mom lists off several skills she would like to target. Which of the following skills would be the most appropriate to target first? Okay, so I don't know if you'll necessarily be asked this type of question on the RBT exam. This is more to reinforce a couple ideas of what we're trying to target for behavior change when you're working as an RBT, okay? So in this case, Tom did an indirect interview assessment with his BCBA. They figured out several different skills, and now they need to figure out what skill is best to address. So remember, when we're picking skills to address, we're trying to pick the most impactful skills and the most socially valid skills. Meaning, socially valid is it's going to have the biggest impact on the client and the people around the client. Okay, so what's important to the client and what's important to their parents, what's important to their siblings, that's what we're looking for, right? Things that are going to help them contact reinforcement, okay, help enrich their lives. So of these 4, which of the following will be the most appropriate to target first? Would it be picking out clothes for the day, reading simple text, tolerating eating salmon, or learning to drink through a straw? All right, so all skills that I've personally been asked to target before, okay? Which one's gonna be the most impactful? Which one's gonna be the most important, okay? Well, I would say reading simple text, right? Reading simple text is going to open up a whole new world to your client, all right? They're gonna be able to contact so many different types of reinforcement that they couldn't before, okay? Picking out clothes, tolerating salmon, learning to drink through a straw are fine. They're just not going to have the same level of impact as reading simple text, okay? So remember, socially valid behaviors are what's most important to us. Timothy recently learned his shapes. He can verbally identify triangles, squares, circles, and more. Now, when Timothy sees a triangle, he says things like big triangle, small triangle, and funny triangle. What does this likely represent? Okay, so think about what Timmy is doing here. Okay, he learned to verbally identify triangles. So he sees a triangle, he says triangle. Now when he sees a triangle, he can say big triangle, small triangle, funny triangle. Okay, what does this likely represent? What is he doing? Is he generalizing responses? Is he generalizing stimuli? Is he shaping or is he manding? Well, we know he's not manding. Manding is making requests, okay, asking for things. He's not doing that here. We can eliminate D. Is he shaping? Well, he doesn't shape his own behavior. We shape behavior, right, with successive approximations. No shaping is occurring here. So that leaves us with response generalization and stimulus generalization. Remember our trick, okay? Response generalization involves multiple responses for a single stimulus. Stimulus generalization involves one response for multiple stimuli. So let's go back to our question. Do we have multiple responses or multiple stimuli? Well, we have a triangle, which is one stimulus, but look at all these responses, right? Triangle, big triangle, small triangle, funny triangle. Many, many different responses in response to a triangle, okay? So therefore, we are looking at response generalization. Whenever you get a response and stimulus generalization question, ask yourself, am I dealing with multiple responses here, or am I dealing with multiple stimuli? Yesterday, you received 3 spam phone calls. The day before, you received 4 spam phone calls. Today, you've received 2 spam phone calls. What is the average rate of spam phone calls you've received? Okay, so I think we are all suffering from this right now, receiving these annoying spam phone calls. And based on your data that you've recently taken, you've received a total of 9 spam phone calls over the past 3 days. We want to figure out the average rate of spam calls. Okay, so what is rate? Rate is just frequency over time. Okay, so our frequency, right, our total frequency is what? Well, day 1 is 3, day 2 is 4, day 3 is 2, so our total frequency is 9. Okay, our time is per day. Okay, so you've received 9 over the past 3 days. If we want to find an average, what do? Well, we divide our total frequency, okay, by the number of days or the total data points. So 9 divided by 3 is what? 3. So your average rate of spam calls you've received is 3 per day. So look at our little formula. Rate is frequency over time, okay? Remember, frequency and rate are related. Frequency is just a count. When you add a time component to the count, you then get rate. So what do we do here? Well, we found our average frequency by adding up our counts, right? 3, 4, 2, dividing it by our total number of data points or our total number of days, which was 3. Our average frequency was 3. Therefore, we are receiving an average of 3 spam calls per day. Make sure you do a few average questions, you do a few rate questions, okay? They might ask you some basic math. You have a calculator, you have pen and paper, so that's not gonna be an issue. It's just understanding how to get to this point, okay? So do a few of these practice ones if you don't understand this, but really it's basic math, okay? After you've done a few, it becomes very simple. A client's reinforcement schedule was an FR2 for months, so a fixed ratio 2 for months. Today, the schedule changed from an FR2 to a VR3. Now, your client has stopped responding during discrete trial training. What is the likely cause of this? All right, so common scenario, there's a very specific name for what's occurred here. What happened? Well, we went from a fixed ratio 2, okay, so a very thick reinforcement schedule. Remember, thick reinforcement schedules deliver a lot of reinforcement, okay, quickly with a low response requirement. VR3 is a lot thinner. Remember, when we thin our reinforcement schedule, okay, we're making the response requirement higher. So you need to engage in more responses on a VR3 to get reinforcement than you do a VR2. So what have we done? We've thinned our schedule. We've increased the response requirement. Now our client has stopped responding. What is the term for this? Okay, there's a term. We know it's not A, your client does not like working. We would never classify a cause as not liking something or feeling frustrated. We can't measure liking, okay? Remember, we're trying to stay technical. So what about B, ratio strain? Yes, ratio strain is defined by, okay, this. When you thin out a schedule, okay, maybe too quickly, responding stops, right? They're experiencing some sort of ratio strain. The response requirement increased too quickly, and now they've stopped responding, okay? So this is what ratio strain is. What about C? Your client is satiated on a reinforcer. Your client is deprived of a reinforcer. We don't know what their reinforcers are. We don't know anything about their level of deprivation or satiation, okay? So those are out. Simply, this is ratio strain. We thin the schedule too quickly. We increase the response requirement too quickly. And now our client is going through this type of strain where they aren't responding anymore. As it relates to motivating operations, the idea that a client has received too much of something and the value has now decreased is known as what? All right, so very simple question here, okay? Very simple, but you just need to know a little bit about motivating operations. Remember, motivating operations come before RSDs, okay? They alter the value of reinforcers and consequences, okay? And there's two specific terms you need to know. You need to know when a client has received too much of something and the value is now decreased, okay? And you need to know when a client hasn't received enough of something. So when the client has received too much of something, what do we call that? We call that satiated. When the client hasn't received enough of something, we call that deprived, okay? So the client has received too much of something. This is a form of satiation. When you get too much of something, the value of that thing decreases. If you eat too many cookies, the value of cookies is going to temporarily decrease, okay? Motivation and establishing are related to MOs, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the state of the client. Again, too much of something is satiation, not enough of something is deprivation. Know these two words, no satiation, no deprivation. Know what they mean, okay? Understand how they're going to affect the value. If you're deprived of something, deprived of water, the value of water goes up. Your motivation to earn water goes up. That's the basic idea behind motivating operations. MOs give people a lot of difficulty. You just need to understand them at this very basic level, okay? Too much, too little of something makes you want it or not want it, okay? Very straightforward, very simple. There are several factors to consider when designing interventions for behavior. We must know what happens before, what happens after, why the behavior is happening, and what the behavior looks like. What is the most important thing to consider when addressing a behavior? Okay, let's go through this question piece by piece. We must know what happens before. What is that considered? Antecedents. Antecedents are what happens before behavior. What happens after? Those are consequences, okay? Why the behavior is happening. That's the function of the behavior. And then what the behavior looks like, that's the topography. So out of these four very important things, what is the most important? Well, the antecedents and consequences are important, okay? But those don't necessarily tell us why the behavior is occurring, okay? The consequences let us know what's maintaining the behavior, okay? The antecedents is letting us know what's evoking the behavior, okay? But the most important thing is why is that behavior happening? And that is the function: escape, attention, tangible, automatic, sensory, okay? That's the most important thing when targeting a behavior. As an RBT, when you see a new behavior, the first thing you want to start to identify is the function. Why is this behavior occurring, okay? Then we can start to treat that behavior appropriately. Topography, of course, is what the behavior looks like. Important, but not as important as the function. There are 5 primary styles of teaching that we reference in ABA. What style of teaching depends on taking advantage of learning opportunities that occur in the environment? Okay, so there are 5 styles. You only need to know 2 for the ABA exam. You need to know incidental teaching and DTT. Therefore, you can eliminate direct instruction and precision teaching from this answer, okay? Direct instruction is a form of group instruction that uses corresponding scripts. Precision teaching is reliant on fluency, okay? We are looking for the style of teaching that takes advantage of learning opportunities that occur in the environment. Is that incidental teaching or is that DTT? Well, how is DTT defined? DTT is contrived, sitting at a table, okay, sitting in a controlled environment, delivering rapid instruction, rapid feedback, okay, not necessarily taking advantage of learning opportunities, but more creating and contriving learning opportunities. When you're taking advantage of these learning opportunities in the natural environment, what are you doing? You're incidental teaching, which is another term for natural environment teaching. Okay, so taking advantage of learning opportunities that occur, okay, as you're with the client is a form of incidental teaching. Rebecca worked 100 hours last month as an RBT. She received 3 hours of supervision, which equals 3% of her total hours worked. Did Rebecca meet the supervision requirements set out by the BACB for the month? Okay, you need to know your basic supervision requirements. Okay, what is our requirement? Is it 3%? Is it A, she required to earn 3% of hours worked? No, right? What is the number we're looking for? What about B? Yes, you only need one supervision meeting per month. Okay, not necessarily, right? What about C? No, she needs at least 5% of hours supervised per month. Yes, right? Our goal for supervision is 5% of hours worked supervised per month. Okay, this is something you have to keep track of monthly as an RBT. If you get audited, the BACB is going to want to see that you've actually received supervision 5% of the hours you worked per month. This is important to receive training, to receive feedback, okay, for the sake of our clients and for your own personal development. Supervision is very important. So Rebecca, only receiving 3% of her total hours worked, she does not meet the requirement set out by the BACB, okay? She needs at least 5% of hours supervised per month. A behavior plan should include which of the following? Okay, so pretty easy question here. Finish you on an easy one. What does a behavior plan need to include? A, an observable and measurable behavior definition. Absolutely. We need to know what we're tracking, what we're looking for, what we're trying to decrease. The best way to do that is through an observable and measurable definition. Antecedents and consequences to the behavior. Definitely. We need to know what happens before that behavior so we can be on the lookout, so we can implement some proactive strategies. And then we need to know what happens after the behavior, okay? What is maintaining this behavior and how can we fix it? And then C, a crisis emergency plan. Definitely, right? In case something goes wrong, in case you're in danger, in case the client is in danger, you need to know how to react. That is a crisis emergency plan's job. So our answer is D, all the above. All right, I hope you enjoyed these. Please like and subscribe if you did. Be sure to check out rbtexamreview.com for all of our study materials. Those will be in the comments and description below. We also have our website live for our BCBA program, which is bcbastudy.com. Be sure to check that out as well. Other than that, keep working hard, and I will see you soon.